I think they can be a fantastic way to improve cash flow or to have family members stay a bit more removed from your own property. Hi, this is Anthony Therrien-Bernard with the Calgary Real Estate Investor Hub. Today I'll talk about things you should look for when buying a property that has a backyard suite or building a backyard suite at the property you're buying. I personally like backyard suites. They're also referred to as laneway homes, garage suites, coach homes, garden suites. It's like a bunch of terms for the same idea, which essentially is just an accessory dwelling that's detached to a property. I personally own a few of those, and we've worked with a lot of other investors that do as well. And I think they can be a fantastic way to improve cash flow or to have family members, stay a bit more removed from your own property. So some of the things to look at to give you a bit of an idea around the history around these units. Calgary had a bit of a pilot program in McKenziestown where they first kind of tried out the idea of building backyard suites. There was some builders there that built them as an option as part of new builds. So that's why you see quite a few over there. And then Airdrie did the same thing. They had a few neighborhoods there, namely Silver Creek and Canals were two areas where they were tried out. And again, there were options from builders. Some people added them after as well. And then in the case of Airdrie, they actually stopped building them for quite some time. And now they're starting to try them out again. And in Calgary, we used to have limitations. If you had a backyard suite, you could not also have a secondary suite, or a basement suite, I should say. So you could only have one secondary suite on the property, either in the backyard or in the basement. Now that zoning has changed with the blanket rezoning to RCG, one of the changes that the city of Calgary made is you can have a basement suite and a backyard suite as long as you meet parking requirements, which right now with RCG is half a parking stall per unit. So in the case of having a basement suite and a backyard suite, you would essentially need to have 1.5 stall, which rounds up to 2 stalls, which can either be in a garage or somewhere in the property, like a driveway, for example. So should you build one from scratch or buy an existing one? And that's a question we hear a lot. A lot of times people look at the property that's got a large yard and think, that would be great to build a backyard suite. I've got lots of space on my lot, parking's no issue, but don't really realize how expensive it can be to build these. The price range that we see right now is often between $200,000 to $300,000 by the time you're done, have utilities running to the property and fully built out. And that can seem pretty high price for such a small unit, but you are in a sense building a whole house that just happens to have a smaller square footage, right? You still need utilities, you still need a furnace, you still need all the things that the regular home would have. Plus, often you're building on top of a garage, you also have to build that in addition. I personally like buying existing suites because they're often a lot cheaper. On the resale market, we typically see them being a lot less than the cost to build a new one. The challenge being that they're not that easy to find. There's not a lot of them out there. Like I said, they tend to be in pockets like McKenziestown or some of the neighborhoods in Airdrie, like Silver Creek. They're not as generally available. People are starting to build them, so you're seeing more of them come in, especially in more affluent areas. Garrison Wood is a good example of that. Some around Inglewood as well. They're typically on more expensive homes. And the reason why is whether you build a suite there or you build it in the cheaper neighborhoods, it's around the same cost to build, right? So if your land value is higher and you can get a bit higher rent, it often makes more sense, especially from a homeowner perspective. But from an investor perspective, often it's still too expensive to buy a home there with an existing suite because of the higher price of the main residence there. So some of the things to watch for that I've experienced personally with these units, and we've seen investors experience as well. First one is insurance. So insurance companies are not very familiar with these type of properties. They don't see a lot of them. So there's a lot of insurance companies that will just not insure your house at all if you have a backyard suite. And some of them will want to do it as separate policies. Because the backyard suite is too expensive of a detached dwelling or detached building, I should say, where typically they're used to insure a garage that's maybe $30,000 to $50,000 in value, sheds, things like that. For them, often it's too expensive to insure. So they often want to do a whole separate policy. The problem with that is if you have a claim, let's say you have a hailstorm and you've got hail coverage, well, likely the main house and the backyard suite will be damaged because they're on the same lot. Well, now you have 2 claims, 2 deductibles to pay, and you have 2 policies to manage as well, right? There are some companies that will do it as one policy. They're not as common, but often you do pay higher premiums than you would normally have to, right? So insurance is a bit of an issue still. You really have to shop around, and I'd recommend working with a good insurance broker. Second thing is if you want to add a backyard suite and a basement suite, or maybe you already have a legal basement suite and you're adding a backyard suite, you really need to look at the main services that are coming to your house. Electrical, for example, might need to be upgraded, and in fact probably will need to be upgraded, especially if you're doing 3 units. If you have 100 amps, it's very unlikely that it will be enough to service a basement suite plus a backyard suite that's got a whole separate furnace and a set of appliances there. So you'll probably have to go to 200 amps or do some sort of load mitigation devices. Even gas line in some cases, especially if it's an old property, might need to be upgraded. Again, you're going to have a whole separate furnace back there and set of appliances. It's something to look into before you start the project, just to understand your cost. Another thing to look into is parking. Like I mentioned, now with RCG, we require 2 stalls, where before it would have been 3 stalls because it used to be 1 per unit. Depending on the width of your lot, just make sure that you can accommodate for that. And that, if the parking is in the garage level, for example, it can be part of the garage suite living space, right? So if there's no access from outside, or if it's not separated, or if the unit above needs to go in the garage to use the laundry, for example, then you might have to have those 2 stalls plus another stall for the main house. So just make sure you look into that. Another important thing to consider, if you're buying an illegal backyard suite and you are thinking that you can use something like the amnesty program with the city of Calgary to legalize it, just know that that program does not apply for these type of units. It only applies for basement suites. And the requirement to bring one of these illegal suites to legal status can be substantial and much more difficult to meet than a basement suite. For example, if the suite is at grade and not on top of a garage, they might look for frost protection. They might look for, they will definitely look for insulation. You need to meet the new building code in terms of energy efficiency. If it's above a garage, they will want to make sure that the garage has proper foundation, proper footings. So it can be quite expensive. In a lot of cases, it might not be possible without rebuilding the whole thing. So that's really something to keep in mind and be aware of. Okay, so now some of the things I really like about backyard suites. I really like the fact that there's separation, right? So in the case of my primary residence, for example, I have a backyard suite, and the way that the windows are situated in my house and in the suite, I don't really see my tenants. They use the backyard, the back alley to come in and out. I use the front street. I don't really run into them very often. There is noise separation because they're pretty far in the backyard, and smells don't travel because they have their own ventilation system. They have their own heating. So there's a lot more privacy overall. I also like the fact that you have one more stream of income. So you're really maximizing the income you get for the lot that you have, especially if you're doing 3 units with main floor, basement, and backyard suite. You're also diversifying your streams of income. Now you've got different unit types that don't necessarily compete with each other as much. The backyard suite being a bit more of a unique proposition, right? Like the tenant demographic that's looking for that, it's often an option that's not common for them. It's great, for someone living alone or maybe a smaller family or just a couple. They have a smaller space, but it feels like a whole house for them, just a smaller one. Some of the things I like less about backyard suites, if you have a small lot, it can feel very compressed in your backyard, especially if you have a bi-level or a bungalow type of home and you're doing a garage suite on top of a garage. It can be a tall building that's shadowing your backyard and looks a bit out of place with the main house. So that's something to consider. You also get more people using that backyard, especially if it's smaller. Now you might have 3 sets of tenants using the same space. And if you have pets, there's more dogs in the yard, more use of the yard overall. The other thing to consider is parking. Even though you're required by the city to have half a parking stall per unit, in terms of actual usability, if all of your tenants have 2 cars, now you have 6 cars to park. Maybe you have 2 or 3 that fits, in the driveway. But then if you don't have a wide lot, where are you going to park the other cars, right? You might be able to fit 1 or 2 in the front, but it might be a consideration, could be an issue. So another thing to consider with these suites, if you're building one from scratch especially, is that they are typically, like I said earlier, more expensive to build than you get on the resale value. So the moment you build them, you're essentially losing in terms of your equity. Now you're increasing your cash flow, and a lot of times it still makes sense, even with one from scratch, but that's something to consider. And another thing to consider regarding this is that it's a use of capital that you could deploy somewhere else. So if you're spending $250,000, for example, to build a suite, and you're using cash to do that, well, that would be a down payment on an entire other property that you would have more land on, and you would have a full house instead of just a backyard suite. Obviously, that's assuming that you would get a mortgage on that and you would pay cash for the suite. But that's an important consideration because the financing to build those backyard suites is often not as easy as just buying a whole other property. So yeah, as I discussed, with the cost of building these suites or buying them, that's a good reason why they're not very common in our market here. Thanks for joining to watch this video. We'd love to hear from you. If you could leave in the comments your experience building a backyard suite or owning one, maybe share some of your construction costs or pain points that you've experienced. That'd be great. I think everyone could benefit from that. And we will be reading every single comment as well if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell below.